Good evening, great evening, everybody. Guess what time it is? It's time for the Ruby Girl Talk Show with your favorite Ruby Girl, Dr. K, in the house, in the room. All right, y'all. Tonight is going to be a conversation for my single ladies and married women. Get in on this too, because you're going to want to weigh in on this and you might learn some things. We're going to let you in the room with us tonight. Tonight, we have returning to the set for the 125th time is Dr. Anissa Short. When I tell you, she is so amazing. So, Dr. Anissa, before we get started, you know what to do. Go find this video, go share this video. And while you do that, I'm going to tell everybody about the Ruby Girl brand. So, Ruby Girl comes from Proverbs 31 and 10. Who can find a virtuous woman for her price is far above the price of a ruby? So, this is for my new people that maybe this is your first time tuning in, or you're tuning in to support Dr. Anissa Short because you know that what she's going to talk about tonight needs to be heard. And so the Ruby Girl brand promotes women. It promotes women being restored, our respect level being restored. And I can tell you from what I've been watching in the news this week, ladies, we are being undervalued. We're undervalued in the workplace, we're undervalued in the homes, and the way that we're being treated now. Hey, we got to get on this Ruby Girl movement. We got to bring back respect for the women. So, all right, go to rubygirl.net, get you a t-shirt, rep the brand. When people see you wearing a Ruby Girl t-shirt, first thing they say, "What is a Ruby Girl?" And there's your conversation to tell them about how virtuous they are, how valuable they are. And look, we need to lift each other up, not pull each other down. So go to rubygirl.net, get you a book, get you a t-shirt, get you something, support the Ruby Girl brand. So, all right, Dr. Anissa, we're going to get you introduced. So give us a 30-second, powerful, earth shaking introduction.
A great evening, great evening. I am a woman on a mission, a woman with a plan, with passion, with purpose to do all I can to enrich the lives of others. That will be my claim to fame. I'm so glad to be here, and Dr. Anissa Short is my name.
Hey, thank you, girl. That was good. She is an expert at conversation. I always say that communication and conversation. She's definitely an expert on those two things. And one day you will teach me how to be as great as you are, Dr. Anissa.
You're gonna be a great version of yourself, is what you're gonna be.
So tonight we're here to talk about her newest book. So if you're single, share this video already. Hit the press that button that says share. It's free. Because I was telling her just before we came on, I said this is a conversation that's really needed. And so we're just gonna get it started. We're just gonna flow as we always flow, Dr. Anissa. So we know that you are a speaker and definitely an author. Tell us about some of the previous books you've written and what makes Why I Said Yes. 10 clues that give me clarity before commitment, different from those books.
Okay, well, first, thank you again, Dr. K, for allowing me to be on for the 125th time. I do appreciate it. So, the very first book I published, I think, was in 2017. The name of it was The Vendor Blueprint. At which time I saw the need and believed there was a need to help home-based entrepreneurs with their representation in the marketplace. They had a great product, they had a great service. They just didn't know how to represent. So I wrote a book to help out my sister friends, those home-based entrepreneurs. Since then, I've curated several other projects that serve to educate, not just educate, but to also encourage and empower. There's the Becoming the Shiro series. Those were curated projects for co-authors. One book included entrepreneurs, another women in the military, another talked about motherhood. There is the Reach, Teach, Lead, which places an emphasis on the importance of mentorship. It was also a co-author project. I have last year released the book, The Quintessential Woman, which is a case study of the Proverbs 31 woman. It's a devotional that points to leadership and legacy for women. Then there was the Voices of the Quintessential Woman, which is a co-author project where it's a mentorship platform, really, where I had other women join me rather to share their stories of if they were their younger selves or had to share any words of wisdom to some 19, 17, 18-year-old woman, who would it be and what would it be? And then, of course, this year was Why I Said Yes. And this book is unlike any of the others. Well, to some degree it is. So let me say this: all of the books for which I have written and authored or curated are projects to support women in some capacity. As I said earlier, whether they encourage, empower, or educate. This particular book does the same thing. It provides clues, breadcrumbs to my sister friends who desire to be married, while also sharing stories of my own relationship with my husband, the courtship, the journey. So I'm sharing a little bit, providing a little information about my personal life as to how my husband and I connected and that relationship and how it blossomed. But in doing so, I'm also offering advice. So it's kind of a combination of the two. So I'm still encouraging, educating, and empowering, but I'm doing it from a more personal platform this time.
And like I said, I want to thank you for doing that for our single women. You know, if you think about it, the Bible talks about the older women are supposed to basically help the younger women.
Right.
Well, we're adding in the married women should be helping the single women. I think
Absolutely.
that's all part of that scripture because especially now because it's so many women out there that desire to be married that it really is their desire, but they really are have a fairy tale version a marriage because you think
Yeah.
about it, growing up, we were fed so many fairy tales. The knight's gonna come riding in on a
Yeah. Right.
horse. Well, ain't nobody riding no horse right now. He
No,
might come
ma'am.
driving in a hoopty maybe these
They're not
days.
even driving nowadays. They want to ride your car.
Okay, so he's getting off the bus. We're gonna rewrite the story we're gonna be real with the narrative for 2026. Let's be real. Most women are making more, especially women of color, are making more money than men of color. And
Right.
so it turns out that we bring a lot to the table. And Dr. Nissa, I find out because we bring a lot to the table, we have a certain mindset when we sit at that table where the woman back in the day had a different mindset when she sat at the table. And I
Yeah.
know this is off the cup, but think about it. When the woman would say of the 1930s would say that sat at the table, maybe she wasn't able to get a job. She depended on her husband. So she was looking at all he could do for her, if he could provide for her, if he could provide for the
And
children,
that made sense. That made
Yeah.
sense because society, the way the culture of society then, women
Mhm.
didn't work outside the home. If they did, they were teachers or secretaries, and men were the breadwinners. So that wasn't just a black thing. That was the culture,
Mhm.
period. So
Mhm.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So now the culture has changed to where we can be anything that we want to be. And so when we come to the table, we have a certain confidence. We have a certain, I think we have more choices than we did when they did. Because with women, well, let's go way, way, way back to where they couldn't even get jobs. So if a man wanted them, they just had to go along with it because who else was going to take care of them except for their father? But now that when we bring the chair up to the table, we have options. And I think we forget that we have options. We're just happy that there's a man sitting at the table and he's willing to be with us. And I think we have to get past that. And that's why I'm like, I'm glad you wrote this book because a lot of times women marry for the wrong reasons, for their reasons, even for his reasons. Like, if
Mhm.
I get him, then he'll be this and then he'll be that. But like you say, we base our relationships off too much potential. So here's our next question. Share your experience in the dating pool and what was it like before you met your husband?
I didn't have a lot of experience in a dating pool. I'm gonna be honest with you because my frame of reference when I finished, in high school, you had the boyfriend girlfriend type of thing. My high school years were disrupted drastically because my parents moved us. So the people that I grew up with, and I was friends with, and have been known for years, I was pulled away from them and went to another area. When I went to the next area, I had to build relationships with people again, but my mindset was I'm ready to go. Honestly, Dr. K, I don't know that I'm the blueprint for dating because my mindset was I'm going to finish school and I'm gonna get 2 degrees before I get serious with anybody. Because my mind's eye was I was gonna be in a position to take care of myself. So if I got married, great. But if not, I wanted to position myself to be able to um, have the career, to be able to make the salary that I wanted to have the quality of life that I desire. And so I did at the age of 23. I had my master's degree. And then I started working with the federal government. I was dating a young man at the time, and we thought there was a lot of conversation about marriage. Of course, I ended up having to give him his pink slip, and that never happened, of course. But I did. I went on and got a great job with a good paying job with the government. I moved away from home. I bought a home. I think for my 28th birthday, I bought a house. This was all before I got married. So my focus was not any Tom, Dick, or Harry. Now, if he came along and he said he wanted to take me to dinner, maybe, but I wasn't hungry because I could buy my own meal. I wasn't thirsty. I could buy what I wanted to buy to drink. And because I wasn't looking for marriage, I wasn't, anxious about being married. I had already gotten out of another a relationship, so my mind was like, I'm just gonna take care of myself. If marriage happens, it will. But I wasn't out with a billboard saying everything that came out of my mouth was not about getting married or finding the right man, or always positioning myself to meet the right man. That was never what I wanted to do. I was happy single, and my weekends consisted of either going to visit my family or hanging out with my girlfriends and doing things on the weekend, going to games and and traveling and doing getaways. That's where my mind was. And of course, yeah, I did my share of flirting, but at the end of the day, you didn't need my number because it wasn't going anywhere. So that's kind of where I was. So I don't know that I would be that person to say, Anissa, what was your dating life like? Because I didn't date. I was not a casual dater. Period. In period.
I like how you were loving the life that you live. When people say they're not satisfied being single, you're basically, let me translate, saying, I don't like the life that I'm living.
Right. You got
Most
to create
single,
what you want.
yes, this is your time. This is your time. Like you said, you went, you got your master's, you were living life. Some people put a pause right there. I will do this when I get a spouse. You have to do everything you need to
Everything you
do.
desire to do,
Everything.
right. It's out there, it's
Everything.
available. I remember a young lady that was about the same age as myself. She was maybe a few years younger. And it was funny because my friends in my circle, when I purchased my home, they were like, "And this, you buying a house for real?" I'm like, "Girl, yeah, girl, I'm buying a house. I'm not paying rent forever." I was like, every time I paid rent, I would cringe because I'm like, all this money just going to waste. I'm gonna buy a house. So when I decided to buy a home, it precipitated something in my circle. Then my girlfriend from grad school said, "I'm buying a house." And she bought one. And then my friend Dana decided I'm buying a house. So my friends that were close to me, it's like what I did inspired them to do it. That's just kind of how we were. Now, mind you, however, there was the flip side. There were those who said they would buy a house, they could, but they were waiting till they get married. I'm like, why? Why are you waiting to get married to buy a house? Why you just can't buy one now? I mean, you're paying a note, a monthly payment anyway. So,
Yeah.
and then was, well, what happens if I get married? I was like, well, if you get married, then y'all decide whether you're gonna keep your house and he gonna sell his, or you're gonna move it to his and you're gonna sell yours, or you're gonna rent out one, and have investment. I don't. Anyway, that's just where I was. And then I had someone say to me, um, they told their daughter not to buy a house because they didn't want her to buy one. Because what if a gentleman wants to marry her? What is he gonna think when he has her own home? And she said this out of her mouth, and I said, the right man for her is going to be impressed that she has a house, not that it's a threat. I was told I'd never get married because I'd done too much. I had a good job, I had a car, and I had bought a home. So they didn't know any man that would be. I said, well, why would that be an issue? And I said, well, I think just the different. I think totally different. I think the ideal man for me is going to meet me and be impressed by the fact that I've moved ahead and I've accomplished these things, and that's going to be attractive to him and not a threat.
You know, you gotta be you. You gotta live you. You can't just be this person that's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna live like this. I'm gonna do this because I'm gonna get married one day.
Right.
Why not live where you at? I'm just gonna enjoy life because I'm single. And
And,
when you're
right.
right,
I'm
you
gonna do
know,
all of this, and then when I get married one day, then I would have had. I don't regret anything about. The only thing I said I wish I would have done more of as a single woman is to take trips with my girlfriends, not just weekend getaways, but I mean like, y'all, let's go to the Caribbean for a week. Let's go travel, internationally. I didn't do any of that, but trust me, everything I wanted to do, I did.
And that's what we're supposed to do, because
Mhm.
I don't think men put their life on hold.
They
I
don't.
don't
No,
hear
they
men
don't.
saying, "Well, you know what? I'm not gonna buy this Mustang because I might get married one day, so I'm gonna
No,
buy
they're
this
not.
van."
The average
Men
man
live
is
their lives.
the average man is not sitting around talking about when they get married one day. Think
Mm.
about it. That's us. We sit around and do that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I don't want anyone to take what I'm saying from a negative standpoint. What I'm saying is, first of all, marriage is a beautiful thing. Marriage is an honorable thing. And when you meet someone and you all can build a life together, I think that reflects the heart of God. I honestly do. But until that happens, take care of yourself and build the quality of life that you want, and stop putting things on hold and lowering your standard or not elevating your standard to match what it is you say you want. We say we want this, but the standard that we set for ourselves is not doesn't match what we say we want.
And it's just like, say for instance, like you say, if you didn't buy a home, you didn't get your degree, or because you like, I'm gonna be married one day and I'm gonna be a housewife, I really don't need the degree. So when you do meet that man, because you lived your life at a certain standard, you're gonna attract certain men. Just like when you wealthy, the dating pool changes for you.
Well,
So
let me say this too,
mm,
and I think to some degree, we don't live in reality. So if I am a woman that says I want, one of the terms I hear a lot now is high value men. I want a high value man. Well, what does that look like? And most of the times when I've heard people use that phrase in referencing a high value man, everything that they're referencing is superficial. He needs to have a six-figure income. He needs to be, living in this type of neighborhood. He needs to be driving this type of car. He needs to carry himself with this amount of swag. And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if I say as a black female that I want my significant other, my husband, to be earning six figures, how many black, and he has to be black, how many black men earn six figures? So when you look at that, the percentage is very low compared to other ethnicities, right?
mhm.
I'm not saying that to be degrading or to be negative. It's just the reality of things when you look at statistically. So let's say you got 100 men. How many out of those 100 men make six figures? Probably only 1%. So if you got 200 women wanting that 1%, that one person, how many are gonna get them really? And if he's earning a six figure and living a six figure, multiple six-figure lifestyle and the quality of life, he's wanting someone else to measure up. Who do you think he's gonna get? What's gonna be attracted to him? Is he gonna be attracted to the woman that's sitting around saying, I can't go to school, I hadn't gone to school, I hadn't bought a house, I don't like to travel because I'm staying at home because I'm waiting on my husband to find me to get married? No, he's gonna be looking for the woman who has a certain level of ambition to match his. Not to say that they be identical, but you got to have a certain level of ambition. So when I talk about when I decided to write the book, why I said yes, it was more so not so much to say that the desire you want in a spouse is not good, but I'm wanting my sister friends to place more value on that which has a more solid foundation from which to build and not the superficial. He could be a six-figure earner today and become ill and all of a sudden lose his job. Then what?
Mhm.
Those are the types of character not characteristics, those are the traits that can change. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I understand you want an ambitious man, you want a man that has something on the stick, something to offer. I get that. But at the end of the day, those types of things could change in a 30-day window. You can go from rag to riches. We can go from sick to from well to sick. Things can happen. But what about character? The character of the man, which is going to be evident, or it should be evident before you even marry him. It doesn't. We don't want to talk potential. We grown folk. We talk about potential when he 10. He has such great potential. He's such a smart young man. He's 15. He has such great potential. When the brother is 30, he needs to be walking in the potential, not aspiring for potential. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
So anyway, so when I wrote the book, I wanted to share my story, not because my relationship is perfect. So please don't, please. My husband and I are human. We have our own flaws. But there was a certain approach. There were things about my husband that triggered for me. And I realized that, he's a good guy. And then there were characteristics that I realized about him and it wasn't that I had a checklist of characteristics like bloop, he meets this one, bloop, he meets that one. It wasn't that. It was just in the course of the relationship being built, I began to realize certain things about him. I'm like, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool trait. I
Mhm.
like that about him. Da 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 da. You know what I mean? And then when I look back in retrospect, is when I realized that these 10 traits were evident. I don't know that I saw them in a checklist formation in the port of our courtship, but now that we've been married 28 years, when I look back in retrospect, I said these were evident. They're evident now, and they were evident then.
Mm. So that's what made him different from the rest. Was
Yeah.
tell us some things, some more concrete things that made him different, and that's still putting a smile on your face.
Well, one of the things is that from day one, I never had to guess about where I was and how important I was to him. And what I mean by that is that his priority was is me. So even today, as a been married 28 years, there are no decisions made that he doesn't consider how it affects me or how I feel about it. You follow me? But that
Yes.
was the case in our courtship. But that was also the case prior to us being a couple. We were friends. So if he felt like I was offended by something, he was apologetic. And he was like, that's the last thing I want to do is offend you. I apologize. And I'm like, and there were times when I tested him because I wanted him to snap off so I could say, well, he crazy too, like the rest of them. And he never would. So yeah. So that's one thing. I never, it's always, let me talk, it's always, he's always considering me, period. Right. Then there are other things. Another thing is that he's always been very, I want to say, astute to my need or to who I am. So,
Mhm.
for example, I could be busy. I work from home. I could be busy all day. I can come out of my office and or out of my cave, and I finally look up and the dishes are done, the kitchen is clean, and it's not that he doesn't do household duties, but I would be thinking I need to go ahead and clean this kitchen up and throw this stuff in the dishwasher. He's already done it. And then when I
Mhm.
go to the bedroom, he's already got the sheets and stuff pulled back and the pillows propped because he know I'm tired. I don't have to ask him these things. That's what my husband's done. That's what he'll do on any given day now. Any given day. But even when we were dating, I remember our relationship was by phone, and I remember, when the first cordless phones came out, you had the
Yes.
long antenna that you would pull.
Yes.
And this one phone I had, I dropped it so many times, I was surprised it still worked. And I remember him teasing me about what's going on with your phone. I can hardly hear you. And I was like, this old raggedy phone, that kind of thing. And so he's like, you need to get you another phone because I can't. You sound like a robot or something. We were just laughing about it over the phone. And then when he came to visit, I bought my home. When I bought my home, he wanted to come help me pack to get ready to move into my house. I said, no, I can't entertain company. I just got to get settled. So the next month when he came to visit and he brought housewarming gifts. And guess what? A new phone was a part of the housewarming gift.
Oh. Oh,
He said, you
wow.
could throw this old raggedy phone away. I got you a new one. When I opened up the box and saw it was a phone, I just cracked up laughing because I knew he had talked about the phone. Not only that, but when he came to visit, I was still a little uneasy about having guests because when you move and you still got boxes, you still got things of that nature. He was like, "I'm gonna come help you do." I was like, I don't want him touching my stuff." I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So I had to have washer and dryer delivered, but then I also had to be at work because he came in on a Thursday, and so I was like, I'm not gonna really be able to entertain until till Friday because I got to work half a day Friday. He's like, "Don't worry about that." I said, "Oh man, I got washer and dryer being delivered." He said, "Well, why don't I come, be at the house so when they come, if they come while you're at work, I can let them in." I was like, "Oh, okay, that'll be cool." I said, "Okay, that's perfect, perfect timing." So sure enough, when I got home midday on Friday, the washer and dryer had been delivered, it had been installed, but this man had unpacked every box in my kitchen and had stacked up all of my plates and cups and spices and everything that goes in the kitchen and had stacked them up on the kitchen table and on the countertop. He
Mhm.
had torn down all the boxes, placed the boxes in the garage, and had mopped the floor
Oh,
and said,
wow.
because I walked in the house smelling pine sol. And I was like, you You unpacked everything? He says, yeah. I didn't know where you wanted to put everything though. That's why I just left it on the counter so you could decide where you want to put things in the cabinet. And I'm like, do I smell pine salt? He's like, well, yeah. He said, the floor was a little dirty. So after I finished, I mopped the floor and that kind of thing. And Dr. K, I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. He know how to do household chores. Praise your Lord. But I didn't ask him to do that. He could have very
Mhm.
easily been vegging out on my sofa. You know what I'm saying? Eating my snacks, waiting on me to get home. And then I would have had to unpack. But because he was there, he took the initiative. He's always been that way. Always.
Well,
Always.
I'm here to tell you, Dr. Anissa, he's definitely wasn't in the dating pool. Because those women would have been swimming over there. They probably ended up drowning that man. But I get what you're saying. He's concerned about your well-being,
Hmm.
and not only concerned, but he makes sure life is a little bit easier for you.
Yep, he
And
does.
it's
He
a
really does.
partnership. It's
It
not that
is.
it's a role ship with this is her role to do
No,
this. This is
mm-mm.
my role.
We're a
It's a
team.
partnership.
It's been that way since day one. He added to my peace. Now, mind you, I told you I was happily single. I was happily single. I didn't have a problem coming home to my house, lock my door, close my garage, go put on my pajamas and sit on my sofa and be happy with Jesus alone. You know what I mean? On
Yeah.
my weekends. And the weekends I would hang out with my girlfriends. We would, we those were scheduled. I wasn't sitting going, woe is me. You know what I mean? So when Alfonso came into my life, he added to the piece. He didn't take away from it. I had to make concessions because it was different having somebody be in your space. But that's what when it comes to relationships. But here's the thing, I never had to make any adjustments. It was like if I had some things going on, he's like, don't make any changes for me. And I'm like, well, I got this going on that weekend. He said, well, are y'all gonna have t-shirts? I remember there was a company picnic and I was a part of the logistics. I said, that's gonna be company picnic weekend. All day Saturday is from this time to that time. He said, well, I still would like to come. And I'm like, but I got a company picnic. He said, well, just get me a shirt. How much is a shirt? He said, what you got to do? I said, I got to do a lot. He said, well, okay, well, I'll be there to help. And that's what he did.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
so because I was like, well, we're not going to be able to do anything. He said, I'm not coming to do anything. I'm coming to spend time with you.
Okay.
That was different.
That is different. But
Yeah,
this is the most powerful statement you have said all night. He added to your peace. I think
he did.
ladies, put that in the chat. A man will add to your peace. We think a man I'm gonna be honest, we've been trained to think when a man comes along, your life's supposed to go up. He comes with a nice car, he comes with the extra money. Now, where you're living single and you got a two-bedroom, now y'all upgrade, get the three-bedroom and all that. But he needs to bring more than material things to the
And see,
relationship.
and that's what I mean by standard,
Yeah.
Dr. K. Our perception of what we think a marriage or relationship is based on the wrong thing. Now,
Mhm.
I'm not saying that having a nice home and having reliable transportation, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. So please don't get, because truth be told, if brother man was broke, it would have probably been a different conversation. You follow what I'm saying? But I
Yes.
asked him, I said, I want your medical record, I want your credit report. And he was like, what else you need? That kind of thing. That's just kind of how I was. But here is, I'm not saying that those things are not important, but what I am saying is that we miss things like the character. Does he keep his word? Does he prioritize you? Why are you arguing about him ghosting every time you turn around? He come up missing for so many days and you just don't know what's going on, and y'all been dating for 2 years now, but he had these spells where he just come up missing. Why would he come up missing if he's important to you? If he's
Mhm.
important to you, why would he come up missing? And those are
Mhm.
red flags. We don't see that type of thing. He doesn't keep his word. He's not dependable. He's not disciplined. He doesn't prioritize you. He hears you, but is he listening? You having to constantly repeat yourself over and over again. It's the same fussing and fighting, different day, different scenario, but same problem. Those are characteristics. And so what we do sometimes is we bypass those little context clues. We go ahead and get married because he looks the part, he smells the part, he drives the part. You follow me? And then
Mhm.
we get married and then we become disappointed when the marriage is not what we thought it was supposed to be. Well, the marriage is what it is because that's who he was when you married him. but you gave concessions to all of that. You thought he would change. He is who he is.
Yeah.
He is
And
who he is.
I hear this all the time. Once you meet a man, that's who he is. We
It
be trying,
is.
like you said, potential. We're looking
Not
at,
with a
like you
grown
said,
man.
10 years
Mm-mm.
old is when you have potential.
Yeah,
When you grown is who you are. And
right.
I just wish we as women would just get rid of that mindset.
It will.
Just
And
it's not working.
here's another caveat to that.
Uh-huh.
I didn't expect anything from Alfonso that I didn't bring to the table. So if I want him to be a man of character, of integrity, I need to be a woman of integrity. If I don't want him to be whorish, I'm not going to be whorish. You know what I'm saying? If I
Mhm.
want him to be a family man, then I'm a family woman. It goes both ways. So even in our establishing the standards that we feel to be important to us, we need to first make sure that we're that too,
Mm.
because there needs to be, that's what that unequally yoked, people think unequally yoked means that he's a Christian and I'm a Christian, so we're equally yoked. Not necessarily. That's a start. I'm not saying that's a good thing if you're a Christian and you want your companion to be a Christian. I get it, but what about family? Is he a family man? Are you a family man? Does he prioritize quality time? Do you prioritize quality time? Is he hoish? Because there are a lot of hoish Christian men out there.
Yeah.
So is he, if he this, are you that? You want to make sure you match it. And it's not even fair to him to expect for him to have these high standards and then you don't bring that to the table as well. So it goes both ways. And in the book, I do provide insight as to the characteristic, and I give an example of how Alfonso exhibited that. But I'm helping my sister friends and saying, I want you to consider this. Here's what I want you to consider, and here's an example of what this looks like in reality. But at the same time, I'm even talking to guys. If you really truly desire to win her heart, then let me show you how to do it. This is the man you need to become. These are the characteristics you need to develop.
Mm. Now that's good. So we're gonna take a break, Dr. Anissa, off of that. Yes. And let me see. So what I'm gonna give you is a 1 minute. 1 minute, you're gonna have the show to yourself. I'm gonna go out on social media and see what people are saying, if they got questions, what comments they made. Can you handle it for 60 seconds?
I'll do my best. I don't
All
know.
right. Okay. Well, you go ahead. I trust you just a little bit. Okay.
All right. So this is what I want to do in this 60 seconds is read to a excerpt of the foreword in my book, which was written by my husband. It's entitled The 800-Mile Commitment. I recall the initial days in 1996, and this and I were trying something that many, a bit, albeit with skepticism, thought impossible. We were curating a love story despite being 800 miles apart. In a time prior to FaceTime and instant messaging, we established a foundation for our lives using the sole resources available to us: handwritten notes, costly phone calls, and a steadfast faith in us, quote unquote. When I initially shared the news about Anissa with my mother as well as my aunts, they didn't perceive merely romance. Instead, they sensed a heartfelt yearning coupled with a remarkable determination, really remarkable determination of two individuals striving to build a divide. Now, 28 years later, we have not only endured the gap, we have established a flourishing, enduring marriage that shines an example of those who knew us when. Within these pages, the tale of the journey awaits you. It's a tale of joy, anxieties, and faith. Yet, more importantly, it serves as proof that when you discover the right individual, distance doesn't merely make the heart fonder, it fortifies it. And there's a little bit more to that, but I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah. So that's the intro written by my awesome husband, Alfonso Short.
Oh, that is beautiful. So we got Kimberly Alexander out there watching. Hey,
Hi,
Kimberly.
Kim. Kim is my cousin.
Okay. We got Lisa Yvette Jones all the way from California. Hey,
All
Lisa.
right. All
All
right.
right, we got a few other people out there. They didn't comment, and so that's all. If you did comment, this is all that Facebook is showing me. It don't always show me all of it, but I thank you for watching. Hit that share button right quick so we can get some more people on here. But so now we're on the second part of the Ruby Girl Talk Show. So let's talk more about your book.
Okay.
Well, I said yes. I love that your husband wrote the intro to that. I love the teamwork because a lot of times business women entrepreneurs don't, sometimes we have the spousal support, but from what I hear from a lot of them, that they don't. So I love the fact that your husband understands sometimes you need that alone time, and sometimes he knows who you are. He knows
Yeah,
that's part of your makeup, and I
yeah,
love
it
that.
is.
So your book was written because you want to inform women of the foundational things a man should have or do before a woman say yes. Now you
Yeah.
shared quite a few things, but what are the most two important things that women need to see in a man before they say yes?
So I broke it down by, I say chapters, but it's not really chapters. I go by characteristics. So the first characteristic is I talk about his approach, and not necessarily his approach to me, but how he treats people, period. Okay. I met my husband at a conference. And so on the surface, it looked like he could have possibly been categorized as the ladies' man. Of course, that's what I teased him because he was so chivalrous. He would open the doors for people. He would be like Mr. Hospitality. I didn't realize then when I first met him that he was a part of the team that was in charge of the logistics for the conference. But nevertheless, what he did for one woman, he would do for another. So it looked like he was being a little flirtatious with everybody. I'm like, well, he's just the ladies' man, isn't he? And then I would say, oh, you just Mr. Ladies' Man. He's like, no, that's not who I am. And what I realized, of course, later in getting to know him, that that's just who he was. He treated everybody with respect. He treated women like ladies, whether they carried themselves like a lady or not. He was not, he was nice and friendly to everybody. So I watched him in action, and what I thought with him being Mr. Casanova, which he probably still had a little Casanova in him, wasn't really that. It was just who he was. And when later knowing that his mom and aunts were all responsible for raising him, they were all there together. They all had a part in who he became and how he treated women, because he treats his mama good. He treats his aunts well. You follow what I'm saying? So I talk about his approach. And so, what I don't want women to do, and what I hope that they don't do, is to get so giddy and excited about how he treats them. Oh my God, he told me my dress was pretty. Oh my God, he told me my hair was nice. He said, oh my God. And we get so blown away about a compliment. You know what you owe him? A thank you. That's it, period. You don't owe him anything other than that. But he may be complimenting everybody. You follow what I'm saying? If he's overly flirtatious and touchy feely with you, and you notice that he's overly flirtatious and touchy feely with a lot of other women, then that's who he is. Don't doubt it. That's who he is. You know. Now he can change. It's a possibility, but I just say look at what he does more than what he says. And so with Alfonso, his approach was one of respect, and even when he was addressed, what I felt like he was being too in my space or violating my personal space, he was apologetic. And he didn't allow that. He still stayed in my space. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, you're a little too close. Why every time I look up, there you are. He said, what's wrong with me being here? It was one of them back. It was,
Girl,
it
you was
was,
so single.
I mean, I was like, and so that was one thing. Okay. So another characteristic for me, so it was his approach. Okay, so approach is significant. And of course I go into the chapter about that more. Um I talk about, okay, his faith was not performative. We'll say, girl, he's a good guy. He's a Christian man. Because he go to church every Sunday means absolutely nothing. you know, it means nothing. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't carry weight. It does. But why is he going? You have men that go to church every Sunday because they're scoping out the women. They dating 4 and 5 women. I know a lady right now who goes to church every Sunday and meets her boyfriend there, and she's married. Means nothing. So you would say she's a Christian woman. She's at church every Sunday. Yeah, with her boyfriend. And your husband go to another church. I'm not impressed. You follow what I'm saying? So I knew that Alfonso attended church on a regular basis because we lived in different areas. He was an hour ahead of me, and he also attended service, early service, whereas I would go to church, I think, at like 10. He would go to church at 8. So he would be at church and out of church by the time when he would get home. He called me and I'd be dressed getting ready to leave. So it became a routine that every Sunday he would call and say, hey, good morning, happy Sunday, that kind of thing. Well, that was all fine and good. He go to church. Yeah, whoopie doo. Okay. I guess I sing too much in church to not be just impressed by that. Period. Because I could have dated deacons and pastors and musicians if I wanted to in the church that was there every Sunday. So that's what I mean by. But what got me, and I share this in the story, is that when I was able to go to his space to visit with him, there were things that I noticed about his living arrangements. And there were context clues that said, like one example, he picked me up to take from the airport, and we had to go make some stops en route to where I was going to be staying. And he got out of the car to go run in the store to pick up some stuff because he had ordered some things. And I'm sitting in the car, and there was a little New Testament in the car, little green New Testament, and the leather was dry, and it was a lot of little pieces of paper just stuck up in that little bitty book. Now the book ain't but about this big. You know how little New Testament is. They
Yeah.
small. And I opened it up, and I was like, oops, I'm about to drop all these little pieces of paper, but they were stuck in little different places in the Bible. And so when he got in the car, and I went, "Is this your book?" And he smiled. He said, "Yes, mine." And I was like, "What's up with all these little pieces of paper?" He said, "Well, they're just areas I have marked." And I'm like, "How do you not lose all these little pieces of paper?" He says, "Well, I'm very careful." And we laughed about it, right? I said, "Well, why you got it in the car?" He says, "Because he lived in the DC area." He said, "On in any given time, you could be stuck in traffic." He said, "So that's what I use to read." I said, "So you read the Bible in the car?" So he goes, he said, "You got something against reading the Bible?" I'm like, "No, ain't nothing. You can read the Bible whenever you want to." I never heard of anybody reading the Bible in the car. He said, "Well, I read other books too if I have them with me." He says, "But this is always with me." And I said, "So all these little pieces of paper," he said, "there's sections in the Bible that I go to." I said, "Oh, wow. That's
Mhm.
more than performative. That's more than just going to church every day, Sunday." Does that make sense what I'm saying? There's
Yes,
little
that
things
makes
like that.
sense.
Then when I got to his house, I went to go visit, and he had a two-bedroom condo. And well, was it three-bedroom? Anyway, there was one room that was his reading room, he called it. So was nothing in there but a sofa and a table and chairs, whatever. And on his table, he had a Bible. He had other books that were positive, books, maybe books on Black history or something like that. There was a little picture frame of me. I said, "Why am I on the table?" He said, "Because I pray for you." And I'm like, "So you just got a shrine up here with my picture?" He said,
You just making it hard for the brother.
he was like, "Please, no." He said, "But I do pray for you." I was like, "What you pray? What do you say when you pray for me?" He says, "Well, I pray and ask God to keep you safe." And, and that, he told me the things that he said. He said, "Then I also ask him to show me what I need to do to help me I can't think of the phrase now, but basically to give me wisdom on what I need to do to win your heart."
Oh.
So I see, don't do that, because that's what I did. I was like,
Oh.
that's a week. I was like, and I told my friends that they did the same thing. "Oh my God!" And I said, "Girl, please don't even go there." He just made that up. I'm not impressed. Even though I was, you follow what I'm saying? But that's
Yeah.
not performative. So it's one thing to say he
Yeah.
goes to church every Sunday, but I picked up on it in my window of time being there with him, that his faith in God was more than just going to church on Sunday. Does that make sense?
That makes
Because of the
sense.
little, yeah. So if your faith is important to you, what does that look like? And just because he goes to church is a plus. Don't get me wrong, that's great. But does it go any further than that? Does it go? Is it because that's a religious act? You follow me? So going to
Yes.
church every Sunday doesn't make you a Christian any more than sitting in the garage make you a car. You follow what I'm saying? Just because you're present. So it was more performative. So those were the two things. Because one thing for me is my faith was important. And while I wasn't what I call a perfect Christian, I don't know what those look like, but nevertheless, my faith was important to me, and there were certain standards I just refused to compromise. So when I met him and got to know him a little bit better, I saw we had that commonality. You follow me? We had certain standards, biblical principles that we lived and stood on, and so that was important.
And then you said you didn't compromise. I think a lot of times that's where we get in trouble. Once you started
Hmm.
off compromising, it become a pattern.
Yeah, we
You
make
have to
concessions.
stand your ground. You
Yeah,
have to.
you
If
have to have a
it's
standard first. What
yes,
is a standard? And so sometimes I wonder, do we really have a standard other than the fact that he's nice looking and he's breathing and he's a male? And he said I look pretty. Okay, you are pretty. You saw that. You knew what you looked like when you left the house. So all you owe him is a thank you. So what
yeah,
else? What else does he need to bring to the table? And when you're having these conversations, be mindful of the fact that if you're asking him a question as if you're quizzing him, and he has to say yes or no, or pick A. You got three choices. A is this, B is that. If he's trying to win you over, he's gonna say everything he needs to say that he believes you want to hear. So
Mhm.
I'm not concerned about what he says as much as I am what he does. Is what he doing consistent to what he's saying?
Mm.
What Alfonso said, he wanted to win my heart, and I was like, whatever. But he proved it when he said, if you would allow me, I will come to see you every month, because we lived 800 miles from each other. And I went, if I allow you, he says, yeah, because you have to give me permission to come. I just can't force myself into your life. And I'm like, well, I'm glad somebody recognized.
So,
So
because I love your label, success strategist, and you share a few strategies for clarity before commitment in your book. What do you think, real quick, clouds clarity in relationships? Why are people so women? I don't know if he's the one. I think he's the one. What clouds it?
we get to what's the word I want to say? I'm just gonna be, can I just be straight up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we become intimate too soon.
Mhm.
Yeah, we become intimate too soon. Because once you get in, become intimate, and I'm not just talking about straight up sex, because that's very much a part of what people are doing. They're putting the cart before the horse, as my mama would say. But I'm not saying that to be in judgment. But what happens is that because we're emotional creatures by nature, that's who we are. So when we are already in a fantasy world, saying we're looking for the, the knight in shining armor, and and girl, he smell good, and oh my God, his cologne, and then our hormones go to racing. You follow what I'm saying? And girl, he touched my face, and his hands were so soft, and then he's smelling good, and he looking good, and all this stuff. And then we turn around and we become intimate, whether it be just a passionate kiss or go even further. Immediately common sense is out the door. So we'll see things that we know aren't right. Our friends will say things to us and say, well, you need to consider this because I don't know about that. And we'll be like, girl, no, because our hormones and our emotions are tied in. We don't see things clearly. Love hides a multitude of faults. That's what the Bible says. And it's not just love. I mean, when we really find ourselves falling for a person, we make concessions that we really shouldn't be making concessions for. And I believe Alfonso and I being 800 miles away really helped there, because our relationship was really phone talking constantly. So we had plenty of time to have a conversation without being close to each other, for the touchy feelings to start. Our relationship really started as a friendship. So we would just chit chatting. Girl, there were things I told him I would not have told him if I thought he was really trying to, date me. Because I was just talking to him as a guy I knew that, worked in that agency, and we were just laughing and talking about a lot of different stuff. But yeah, I really believe we become emotionally attached too soon
Mhm.
because of the intimacy, and also because we have daddy issues. A lot of us, we are us unconsciously feeling a void. So because we didn't get the attention from a father or father figure, you didn't hear a man tell you you're pretty. You didn't have a man to protect you. You didn't have a man to treat you like a lady at home, or talk to you about how you should be treated. So there's some things you just do out of naivety or ignorance because you just don't know any better. Men know men. I was blessed and still am to have a father who was very much engaged in conversations. If a young man came to the house, my daddy was like, "How you doing, young man? Good to meet you. My name is Ernest." He would just go on and talk and chit chat with him, and the guy think he in like Flint. And as soon as he leave, my dad said, "Leave him alone. He crazy." We become like, "Dad, you just met him." He said, "Listen to what I'm saying. I'm your daddy. I wouldn't steer you wrong." And sure enough, whatever he told us, but people don't have, a lot of women and young boys too, but young ladies don't have a man in their lives, a life to tell them that, to be there to nurture them. You know what I'm saying? To tell us, my father would tell us when we put on something. He said, "You look really nice. You look really nice. That looks nice on you." And he would tell us little things about what men like and what men. He said, "You ain't got to show everything. Leave something to the imagination." He said, "I promise you, they ain't going nowhere. They're gonna always be there, whether you fully wrapped or halfway wrapped or not wrapped at all. They ain't going nowhere. They're gonna always be there."
I
So
love your dad.
yeah,
I
my
love
dad
the
was, yeah,
yeah.
I was blessed with that. So I know that had to be a contributing factor to my level of confidence with regards to what I would tolerate and wouldn't tolerate. So some women don't have that, and that's unfortunate. But here's the thing: some women do have a father in their home, and he ain't talking about nothing. He ain't said a word. Now I know that wasn't proper English. I am Dr. Anissa Short. I understand, but he ain't talking about nothing. He's not having a conversation.
Yeah.
So the daughters grow up, and the father isn't having these time, and for whatever reason, maybe nobody said, I don't know, but because of ignorance, a lot of times, in us being naive about what true relationships should be like, we get caught up. And so that's another reason why I wanted to write the book. Much of what I share in this book, as far as characteristics to look for, my father communicated that to my sister and I, not always directly, but indirectly. In monitoring sometimes who we spent time with. I remember he told, I don't know if it was me or my sister. He said that young man is about games. He wants to play games, but I don't raise toys. I didn't raise
Wow.
toys. And we was like, whoa. He said, so if you want to play the game, he said, I'm just telling you now, that's what he about. He about games, so don't be surprised. He said, if you want to play the game, you're going out there. But he wasn't. He just called it like he saw it. So it got to the point where it was like, okay, so if you ain't serious about him, don't bring him around daddy, because daddy gonna blast you. So then it was kind of like,
Mm.
we just gonna have some fun. He didn't come to the house.
I love that. I love that. I love how your father, he understood that, you know, I interviewed a young man a few weeks ago, and this is what he said. He said when we found out, basically when he was having a daughter, he talked about how they prayed over the child, spoke some things that they want in the child
Hmm.
life, and fathers establish the identity. Father
Yeah.
has so much power in a child's life because the
Right.
Bible even talks about how the sins of the father, visit the generation.
Right.
So
Right.
father's role is very important. So imagine so many single mothers out here with
Hmm.
raising daughters that don't
And
have
sons.
that.
Right.
Yeah, daughters,
Yeah,
but especially
their daughter.
daughters not having
Yeah.
that man
It
to
goes.
speak
You
and
don't have a
teach.
father to speak into your life and to cherish you as a young lady, so you won't feel like you need to fill a void. But at the
Mhm.
same time, you don't have a father that'll teach the young men how to treat women properly,
Yes,
how to
yes.
cherish women, how to treat women. I look at the role of, and I'm not saying this to say that I'm a queen, but I really look at the role of a husband and wife as being like a royal position. And the reason I say that is because it is the only relationship that God parallels with his relationship with his church. Christ is the bridegroom and the church is the bride.
Mhm.
And then when in the New Testament, when he talks about how men ought to treat their wives and this, that, and the third, he parallels it with the church. So it's not a small thing. So we shouldn't take it lightheartedly. So there has to be some standards. I remember getting into this big old debate, girl, with the guy who thought he was gonna be my husband, wasn't he? And his brother and I got into it. And I didn't realize I was getting into it with him. He was getting upset. I was like, what is he talking about? Because he was married, he wanted his wife to be a certain way, and he didn't want her even to question her and that kind of thing. And he said he's the
Mhm.
head of the house. And I said, but you ain't never there. And he looked at me. I said, you're never at home. And I realized you have a job. But he had a job and he would go, be out, hanging out, doing what he want to do. And I know he had other women. I didn't say that part. But that's what he would never, when she needed, she was always at home by herself. He was never at home. He just came and went like he wanted to. So she was raising the kids by herself. She was doing everything by herself. Not because he was working. And he didn't want to be questioned because he's the head. I said, well, you ain't never at home. How you going to be the head of the house and you ain't never there? And he's like, Anissa, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, no, I do. I do. I said, and I made reference to, we know that he said, I'll never leave you or forsake you. You know why? Because he's always there.
Yeah.
If you're supposed to be like Christ, why I can't find you? You know what I'm saying? Why you not answering your phone?
He's on the cross, girl.
Why you,
So
why you,
Dr. Anissa, you break it up a happy home, girl.
but she wasn't
But
happy. She was not happy.
I know she wasn't. She
And they're not
knew.
together today. They hadn't been
Mm.
together a long time. But I don't say that to be
Yeah.
to be condescending. But the point is I'm saying we our standards, our expectations of what it is to have a true courtship and a marriage is just misconstrued because of either ignorance, naivety, wrong role models, and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so that's why you have women that desire to be married that aren't married because they don't know what to look for, or they are married and the couples, he's not happy, she's not happy because the model that they they had in their mind of what marriage should be like was not right, or either one of them had it right and the other one didn't. It's just a lot. So yeah. Um, why I said yes. I was confident in my decision when I went down the aisle.
Yeah.
There was nothing you
Well,
could tell me. I was like, "No, we're gonna get married." Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You don't have any doubt. No, I don't. I mean, why would I be doubting? And I didn't realize why I was so confident until later when I look back on it. Al did everything to help me be confident in this relationship. I
mhm.
never had to doubt.
That's a whole nother book right there. So we only got a few minutes left, and I want you to give us a 2 minute closeout. But I have picked up so many jewels, me being a satisfied single woman. And the one thing too, women, do want y'all to you might not have picked up. She wasn't thirsty for a man. And when you're
Mm-mm.
thirsty for a man, you compromise for that man, especially if you're in need or you're in a bad place, and then this man come along. He don't even have to be a knight, but he's gonna look like one because he knows
Mm-hmm.
how to do the certain things for where you at to make himself look
Mm-hmm.
magnified. So if you
Yeah,
got your standards, you can always raise your standards and say, does he meet this standard, regardless of
exactly.
where you at? If you in a low place, a middle place, or a high place.
Right,
So
right.
we're gonna have Dr. Anissa give us a 2 minute closeout, and that'll be it for the Ruby Girl Talk for the night. Thank you, Dr. Anissa, and I want y'all to get her book. Go on Amazon. I put the link. Why I Said Yes, and this is coming from a married lady. It's not another single woman writing a book, and which I did, but still, y'all, it's okay. But I'm saying now you getting it from somebody that's in a relationship and she knows
Yeah.
that it works. So we definitely need to hear from her. So go ahead, Dr. Anissa, and close us out.
I don't know where to start with the conclusion. I guess I'll just read an excerpt from the conclusion of the book. Okay.
Okay.
So here's the conclusion. I don't know if this is a full 2 minutes or not, but it says, and this is only part of it. As you consider your own journey, I want to leave you with this. One, pay attention to what is consistent.
Hmm.
Number two, pay attention to what is aligned. And number three, pay attention to what brings you peace. Do not rush your yes. Allow it to be built on truth, on character, and on a foundation that can withstand life as it comes. And when that foundation is in place, when you are confident in what you see, what you feel, and what you know, your yes will not be uncertain. It will be steady, it will be confident, and it will be covered. Because a yes that is built on the right foundation is not just for a moment, it is for a lifetime. And even after all these years, 28 for me as of the 30th of May, I can say with confidence, clarity, and peace that I will say yes again.
Hey man, so how can we get in touch with you?
Find me on Facebook, Dr. Anissa Short. Find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Anissa Short. Find me on Linktree. Guess what? Dr. Anissa Short.
And what's your website?
AnissaShort.com. It's still active. I need to revamp it for real, but it's still there. And you can find me. It'd be probably better to just find me on the Chosen Pen Group to contact me. Chosen Pen Group, which is the publishing platform for which I serve as director. But either way, you can find me.
Y'all can find her. So I want to thank you, Dr. Anissa, for number one, writing this book, thinking about your single sisters, and that we need help out here. We need every tool that we can find because, honey, that dating pool. Whew, we need some some life jackets for real. Dating pool is a little bit different than when you were in the dating pool. I try not to go, not even stick my toe in the pool because to me it's like hot and bubbling. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to get burnt, soaked in, or nothing. But to my sisters that's out there, seriously, that's waiting and holding their yes, make sure that you realize how valuable your yes is and understand what you're signing up for. When I say yes to this man, what entails the life that I will live with him? If he's got bad credit, think that out. If he has a felony, think that out. If he has other things, think that out. Don't just be like, oh, wave it off for everything. This is going to become part of your life. You become one with him, whatever he is.
Yeah.
If he's an alcoholic, you become one with him because what he does affects you. So make sure you weigh that yes. Make sure you're confident, as Dr. Anissa was when she walked down that aisle. I want you to be just as confident as she is. So get her book, Why I Said Yes, on Amazon. So we're signing off Facebook. We thank you for being a part of our broadcast. And if you just came in, you can still got time to share this. The replay will play. So good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you again, Dr. K.
Oh, you're welcome.